And I think one of the reasons that Ariana cited for the breakup was, the demons that Mac was fighting, and, probably particularly the substance abuse. And, as people who watch these artists and, performers on a public scale, watching them, create, it's almost like we overlook the, origin of the creative, impetus that they use to create a project. You and I, Corey, we listened to the song going into the episode, and I looking back, I'm like, damn, he's talking about his suicidal, thoughts and struggling to stay afloat mentally.
Yeah, and I think you actually hit on a good point there that is often overlooked, and it's even sad to say this, but a lot of the best artists are not only creating from within, but they're creating from some source of pain from within, from whatever. And you never know what they're fighting or what they're dealing with. But even when you listen to that music, it's so creative and it's so deep and it's so felt because that's really how they feel. But we're on the opposite end of that spectrum. At the opposite end of that spectrum, we're being entertained by it, where whenever they're in the lab or whenever they're writing this or whenever it's being recorded, they're expressing either what they was feeling at some point or currently are feeling when they're making it. And that says a lot in and of itself. But we never think, all right, these lyrics could actually mean more than, it's just a song or they just trying to make a quick buck or whatever. Like, creativity comes from somewhere, and at all times, sometimes you gotta sit back and ask yourself, what's the source? Like, what's really causing this?
And how alone do you have to feel, to feel that you need to, just kind of, envelop yourself in, a substance or something that doesn't have that kind of emotional reciprocity. It's more of a numbing agent. To make that decision when you're especially at the age of 26, where you have to feel very hopeless, to do something like that. Like, I can't fathom it, but I'm aware that there are people who do go through these and experience these real emotions.
Yeah, I think for me, like, it always hit home because anybody in the military, like, we have to sit back and watch all the AFN suicide prevention commercials. We got to go through all the suicide prevention briefings because, especially in the military, there was a very high frequency of it, especially toward the beginning of the war. Things people saw and had to do that you would never expect for an 18-year-old to have to do. And I guess it's not completely surprising to me because I think with every war you look at, you also see a rise in a certain type of substance abuse. And I hate to even put it that way as a veteran, but I mean, when you look at Vietnam and the amount of heroin and cocaine use that spread from there all the way back to the U.S., when you look at, Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and you see young kids that probably never planned on going to war, and then 9/11 happened, and you're presented with actual death and your life actually being on the line and roadside bombs going off and people losing limbs and you lose people close to you and you start to look for an escape in certain situations. And I look at it from the perspective of those are 18-year-olds. Like at 18, like you just leaving high school. Your life is, I can't even say ahead of you. Like you literally got an entire life to live. And you have to start looking for an escape because you've either seen or had to do something that you never planned on encountering. But at the same time, any substance, especially when it comes to drugs, is usually an escape of some sort. People have their uppers for whatever reason. People have their downers for whatever reason. But when you get to the point where you're like, this is escape isn't actually enough and I actually want to escape fully. I want to leave this earth because I actually have no reason to live. Like, that concerns me for a number of reasons. Like even listening to self-care coming into this episode, the first thing I kind of think of when I think about self-care is also the type of care you receive from others. And the reason I say that is because whether people realize it or not, that is kind of a form of self-care, because one, you choose who you surround yourself with, and two, you kind of decide how people treat you. And I mean, even recently, and I can say this completely transparent, like I recall within the last year, I had a bit of a situation with some women. And like I remember Rich coming to my house one day. We had some drinks, but even when he showed up, like you know, you got to be out of it, man. Like you're a shell of a man right now. But he recognizes and he knows, all right, you know, let's get these drinks. Let's chop it up and talk about it, and let's get whatever's out there out for the purpose of relieving whatever stress and tension is going on. And the reason I say that's a form of self-care, because at some point in my life I had to recognize that Richard Washington was enough of an asset that not only could he get to know me on that level, but he would also be able to check me if something like that was to arise, and I wouldn't be thinking, oh, you know what, I should just kill myself. You know what I mean? Like I don't see myself being like, all right, I have nothing to live for, because I know there's people out there that care about me. I know there's people out there that wouldn't want me to do that. But more importantly, if I was to encounter any of those people before doing so, even without speaking, they would know and understand that it's probably something I need to be checked. And I caveat that by saying clearly I wasn't thinking about killing myself, but at the same time, like like I look at something that simple, and if I didn't have that, or if I was somebody that was emotionally weak or didn't know how to deal with stressful situations, something like that could lead you down the wrong path. But at the same time, like I know for a fact if people don't hear from me after, you know, I've had a lot going on or within a certain time frame, like somebody's reaching out to say, you know, what's up? What's going on? How you feeling? How you been? Is there anything you need to talk about? And I think that's essential and key to overcoming stuff like depression and suicidal thoughts and anything that will make you take your life, because there's simply nothing on earth that's worth taking your life for.
So how do you, like, when we start thinking about, I mean, you mentioned, you know, trusting the people that you trust yourself with. You know, what's your process for vetting those type of people? Because it's not an easy thing, and, you know, plenty of people get taken advantage of and exposed, you know, by putting that kind of trust and effort into the wrong type of people.
Yeah, I think that come down to, vetting people thoroughly. And I can say that it's an instinct, but really it's not, because there's certain things that you see in people, and caring about somebody is a selfless act. And if you can't be the type of person to be like, all right, I have whatever going on, but it's not more important than what, you know, whoever has going on in this moment, then really you probably surrounding yourself with the wrong people. Like there is certain circumstances and situations where you have to put yourself aside for the sake of your friends, and your friends should put their self aside for the sake of you. And I think, especially with like my friends, like we all been in those situations, and when those situations happen, we know, all right, let's sit down and focus on who needs it most, and then we'll chop it up after. And usually it ends up in a joking session or something, but it's never one of those situations where we don't get it out. And you know, even a better question about that, and this one is for you because you have more context on that. So like, I was also thinking about this from the perspective of, I remember being overseas, and this guy's wife back home kind of knew something was up. Everybody around him overseas didn't know anything was up. He went back and took his life. And I think one of the things that distracted her from saying something in retrospect was her friends around her, and you know how they felt about him as far as him being overseas and being tough and this, that, and third, and being influenced. So when you one, when you wed somebody, it's a combining of families and friends and all type of things. But how do you, one, receive care and understanding from, I guess you could say, the friends of your spouse or significant other? And I can't say that you can necessarily vet those friends, but at the same time, how do you kind of identify those among your significant other that you can trust or not trust, both with your mental health, safety, etc., and that of your significant other? And I say that simply because, thinking about this in reverse, I know Shannon trusts me with you. You know what I mean? Like I know Shannon would be like, all right, if I got whatever going on, even if it's with Rich and I can't talk to Rich, if she absolutely needed to reach out to me, she could reach out to me because she know how I'm going to respond, react, and do whatever. But, like, how do you really find that level of trust among the friends of yours, significant other, spouse, whatever?
Shit, that's a loaded question.
I mean, it's a real question. It's not loaded. I can understand why you would say that, but at the same time, I mean, it's a real question.
It's 100% real, because, as you already, stated very well, I think support is a team effort. And I think we're all looking for our own, community in a sense. And we already have that with friends that we have, and that we have with our own friends that we build, because the context is always how we relate to each other, and we created our own history, and that doesn't apply when it comes to a significant other, when you're it's almost like a stepmother, stepfather type of thing, a step-parent. You're marrying into, someone else's support, someone else's circle, and you're trying to figure out ways to coexist, and also, figuring out, most importantly, what your role is in this, and if it's something that you want to be in. I think with for me, when, meeting my wife, you're all, especially with women, they all have, a ton of their friends who, are always almost pouring on extra thick about, oh, when are we going to meet him? When we want to meet this guy. We want to see that, make sure that he's good enough for you. And, and they almost kind of treat their friend like they're waiting to be set up for a date. So by the time you get ready to meet them, it's all this. You have no idea what's been said about you. It's a bunch of unknown. You're at the disadvantage because, for better or for worse, your significant other has been, managing the whole narrative about you to these people. So you're trying to figure out, you're trying to, I guess, gauge what the sentiment is in the room, or do they hate you or whatever. And then you really, most importantly, you want to make sure that you're giving the best representation of yourself with any kind of interaction. So, it's that line, are you trying to impress, or most importantly, do you want to be yourself? And I think for me personally, the decision I went with is, I have zero control over who genuinely likes me. You can behave in a way in which majority of people are likely going to have a positive impression with you if you say the right things, do the right things, put on the front. Or you can just be who you are, because if they're going to be around, they're going to see it anyway, and fuck it. Why the fuck do you care, ultimately? Yeah. And I think that's the route I went with. I was going to be who I am. I'm going to say the things I'm going to say, because I believe in the content of my character. I believe in why I'm there to begin with. I'm there for their friend, or their sibling, or their child. I'm there to take care of them. Yeah. Everything else is secondary. So if in my mind I'm doing the best I can to take care of my wife, and treating her in the way that what she deserves, I can't concern myself with the judgment of other people. Do they think it's good enough or not? And also, I'm not going to change up and not be who I am to impress other people, because eventually you can't fake it for that long, and eventually people are going to see who you really are. So why waste the time and effort? Just be who you are. And I think it's harder for men to understand that aspect of it. than it is for women. I think women